we will call to order the first meeting of the new year for the St. Louis City Port Authority in its regular session on January 12, 2023, held via Zoom. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cone.
Present.
Commissioner Mason.
Present.
Commissioner Kay.
Present.
Chair McBride.
Present. Next order of business is approval of minutes for our December 8, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, Alderman Cone.
Been properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Cone.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner Kay.
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. All right, moving on to resolution 23 PT1, acceptance of state professional engineering and ARPA port funding. Susan, can you walk us through that, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone. The city has received, or the Port Authority has received 3 state grants and 1 ARPA grant towards improvements at the South Refuse site on the riverfront and the city's central trash facility at 1200 Central Industrial Drive at that goofy intersection of Vandeventer and Tower Grove and Choteau. And so the purpose of this request is to allow us to procure the services of an engineer to look at the South Refuse site, map out its boundaries, to look at the incinerator that's on the site that has been decommissioned, and see if it's got any contamination and any environmental issues, and then if it's a depending on what that tells us, to then proceed with its demolition. And that would just be the first step. I've been talking at length with the street department about their operations, and so anything that we do there would have to mesh with their plans. So what we're asking for here is to be able to procure the services of an engineer to do a site analysis, look at that incinerator, and tell us what would be involved in demolishing it. And any any engineering contracts, we would bring back to the Port Commission for its review and approval.
And Susan, it says that the PE grant does not require a match, but the ARPA grant does. Is that correct?
Yes, the 2 PE grants do not require a match. The 3rd grant, which is the capital improvement grant, can be used as a match for the ARPA funds. ARPA requires a 50-50 split. So with the 3 state grants, that brings us up to $1.4 million that we have thus far, that we will apply towards the engineering contract. I don't expect it to be that high, but we would have those funds available. And the 3 state sources of funds are FY23, so they're current, and we have until middle of June to expend them. And ARPA is we have till the end of 24 to obligate the ARPA funds, okay. And then the end of 26 to spend them.
Perfect. And then how would this engineer be selected? It
depends on what the ARPA rules are. If they want us to go out for an RFQ, we would do that. The Port Authority has a list of pre-qualified engineers that we procured a few years ago, and so we could use that if that's kosher with, or if that's copacetic with ARPA's rules.
Very good. Any questions from the one more time?
Sorry. So we have 2 avenues for procuring an engineer.
Very good. Any questions for Susan on resolution 23 PT1? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to, oh, go ahead, Alderman.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions. I just kind of want to follow up from the conversations that happened previously regarding this. And, I've had a conversation with Susan yesterday, as a matter of fact, regarding this. And while I still have some concerns around demolition of this, I do appreciate that they've taken the effort to separate the demolition from the engineering review. And, I'll be supportive of this this morning so that we can at least move forward with this part of assessing the property.
Outstanding. Thank you, Alderman.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners on this resolution?
Appreciate
none.
that, Alderman.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I appreciate that due diligence, Alderman.
Commissioner Mason?
Yeah, is there an endpoint? When do you want to have all this done by? Is there a date that you have in mind?
Well, I think that Susan went through the deadlines to incur funding and I believe to spend that funding. Is that right, Susan?
Yes, we have until the middle of June to use those 3 blocks of state money, and so we'd like to get the engineer going. I don't think it'll take that long, so we'll just have to see how it plays out.
And does that include when you want to have the incinerator removed and all that work done, or is that just the plan?
At the moment, it's just the engineering. So I think we have the funds and we have the time to procure the engineer and get them started and see what they tell us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 23 PT1.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Seconded. Commissioner Kay.
Walkability. Somebody,
Who was the second?
Okay.
Commissioner Kay?
Thank you. Commissioner Cone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye. The motion passes and the resolution is approved. Moving on to resolution 23 PT2 relating to approval of an amendment to rent schedule for SI Warehousing Co. Inc. Susan, can you walk us through that, please?
Yes, this was a lease. This was an ongoing lease that we negotiated higher rates for. It was not at market rate rent. So we negotiated the market rate, and we have an appropriate escalator now. And so we did all this, and everything flowed smoothly. And then recently, we've discovered that there was somehow just this typographical error, and the rent schedule shot up too fast. There was like an 8% increase, and it should have only been a 2% increase. So we've been in conversation with SI Warehousing, Archway Fleeting, and Harbor Service, and we've revised this rent schedule to accurately reflect what we negotiated. And so we need to bring this to you to show that we've changed the rent schedule. And SI Warehousing, Archway is in agreement with this. So the request before you is to allow us to amend this rent schedule per the Exhibit A.
I thought you're just a better negotiator than you even thought, Susan.
Yeah.
And we're correcting that. And then is there something with the amendment, or is that just amendment? Oh, we're not amending we're not extending the lease, we're just amending the rent schedule, and that's it. Okay. Well, that seems pretty straightforward. Any questions for Susan on resolution 23 PT2? Hearing none, I'd entertain the motion for approval.
So moved. Alderman Cone.
Moved by Alderman Cone, seconded by Commissioner Mason. We have a roll call vote, please.
Previous roll.
The previous roll has been requested. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection,
Hold down.
resolution motion passes and resolution is approved. Okay, I think we're into open agenda, and we have two of our representatives in DC and Jeff City on our line. I'll let you guys sort out who can start.
Chris, why don't you go ahead and start? Chris and Robert are with Jones Walker, our federal lobbyist.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone. Robert and I will give a brief update on what we've been doing in Washington and what we have in store for the year. So since we last spoke, of course, we've had an election, and Senator Blunt has retired, which of course is a blow to the clout of the Missouri delegation because of all of his great work that he did on the Appropriations Committee for Missouri over the years. It is unclear yet whether his successor, Senator Schmidt, will be on the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, and we could have a situation where we don't have anyone from the delegation on the Appropriations Committee in the House or the Senate. So that'll be a new situation for the state and ultimately the court to deal with. The good news, though, coming out of the election is on the House side, Missouri will get the chair of two key committees in the House. First and foremost of interest to the court is Congressman Sam Graves has now become the chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. That committee not only has jurisdiction over courts, but it also has jurisdiction over the Coast Guard, over the Corps of Engineers, and all things maritime. So we look forward to working with the new chairman, and he, of course, is pledged to be very helpful on issues affecting St. Louis. Additionally, Jason Smith has become chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. So, of course, the court has a lot less interaction with that committee, but Congressman Smith will be in a position to be helpful, given that is one of the most important committees in the Congress. In terms of projects that we were working on with Susan and her team last year, one of the things we spent a lot of time on is the Coast Guard's property at 120, 126 East Iron Street. We've discussed that before. That is property that the Coast Guard has on the river that they haven't used for years. And we would love to be able to get that property in the hands of the port and put it back into maritime commerce. We worked closely with Senator Blunt's office on that, and we had considered having legislation that would convey the property to the city and to a port, but ultimately the Coast Guard indicated that they may have new uses for that property, and they may not want to dispose of it, even though they haven't used it in decades. So that's an ongoing issue, and we are hopeful soon to have some clarity from the Coast Guard. And if they do agree to and commit to get rid of the property, then we'll work with the delegation to get language this year that could convey it. Additionally, we worked on renewing the Marine Highway designation for the port. And that's an important designation that the Maritime Administration within the Department of Transportation gives to various projects and ports around the country. And if you get that designation, then it opens up the opportunity for funding. So we were working on that, and our friends in Congress decided to rewrite the authority for the program, and that bill passed in December. So that has temporarily put things on hold. They will be putting out a notice for applications under this newly revised program in late February, and we will move forward to comply with that request, I presume, subject to Susan and her team. But that will be very important for the court to get that designation renewed. As we head into this year, there are a number of grant programs that the court, on the federal level, that the court can be eligible for, is eligible for. I mentioned MARAD. MARAD, the Maritime Administration, has the Port Infrastructure Development Grant Program. That program is funded both from the infrastructure bill that passed roughly a year ago, and also out of regular appropriations. That program has a notice of funding opportunity out, and applications are due in late April. There is also in the infrastructure bill a program to where ports can apply to reduce emissions, particularly from trucks and other vehicles. That was funded at $80 million in the infrastructure bill. They haven't put out a notice yet for applications, but we're anticipating that. And then let me turn it over to Robert to talk about port security grants that are administered by FEMA. And we suspect that we'll be working with Susan and her team this year to apply for port security grants. But Robert, let me kick it to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and good morning again to everybody. Just to follow on to one of Chris's earlier comments related to marine highways, I've been in, had regular exchanges with the head of the Marine Highway Program at the MARAD administration. So he's definitely going to keep me in the loop as MARAD continues to make progress on updating the new program. And, he's definitely aware of how important this is to, to the port and to Susan's team. As relates to FEMA's Port Security Grant Program, I'm keeping my ear to the ground on that. That is anticipated to be released anytime between February and say April, and it's it's not as intensive as say a RAISE grant or a port infrastructure development grant, but it is a process. And Susan and her team has some equipment that they're interested in seeking funding for, and we're just literally waiting for that notice to be made available. I've already outlined, all of the materials. Once that notice hits and I'll see if there are any changes, then I'll work with Susan and her team to make sure that list of equipment is up to date and is accurate based on what the current needs are. And then we'll get that submitted into the process in coordination with the, with the Coast Guard locally and so forth. So that's all I have to add, Chris, at this point.
Thanks, Robert. And it's my understanding that FEMA has roughly $100 million for port security grants nationwide.
Correct.
And so these port security grants, since they have to spread them across the port community throughout the country, the grants are usually in the $1 to $2 million range.
That's correct.
Susan, we'll kick it back to you, but we're also glad to answer any questions.
Sure. Are there any questions from the commissioners for our DC team? All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Jackie, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. I think all of you have met me just from being on here, but again, Jackie Barget. I live in St. Louis, but we work in Jeff City on your all's behalf up here. Before I get going, Chris and Robert, I did want to mention, I know we helped get some support letters from the governor and some of our state legislators for the marine highway designation, but on any of those grant or designation stuff, do not hesitate to reach out if it is beneficial to get the governor or anyone on the state levels support their they are always anything infrastructure or that helps with transportation, that is right in their wheelhouse. So it's usually pretty easy to get those letters.
That's great.
Of course.
And
No,
you
that's
can count
good to
on
know.
us. You'll be hearing from us during the year.
Do not hesitate to reach out. But from that, just so you all know, legislative session in Missouri started last Wednesday, the 4th. They will go through May 12th. They meet every Monday through Thursday. They take 1 week off in March for spring break. It always is a little comical, but it's a nice break that I think they need. It's always nice for us. But so everything kind of is moving slowly. It was an election year, so we have a substantial amount of new legislators. We have 47 new members of the House and 8 new members of the Senate. That just means there is a ton of new educating that has to happen. A lot of these people have one industry that they focus on. So a lot of them do not know much about ports or how they're funded or how they operate or not. That's kind of what we've been doing the first 2 weeks, is going around making sure people know that we represent you all, explaining kind of how the funding works in Missouri. And then yesterday, actually, the committees obviously get shaken up when there's this many people that are new to the realm up here. So they just announced all of the House and Senate committees. The House Democrat members are the only ones that we do not know yet. But on the Senate Appropriations Committee, we will have Senator Carla May from the city of St. Louis on there, who has been very, very good to us, and Senator Brian Williams, who is from St. Louis County, but is a very big advocate for both the city and the Port Authority. So it's great to have them on there. And then the chair of the committee is Senator Lincoln Huff from Springfield, who has, not that others have not been, but he truly does think that St. Louis is an economic engine of the state and wants to make sure that we're putting money in the city to help with that. Budget-wise, we won't really know much. The way that the budget process works in Missouri is it all kind of starts with the governor. He will release his budget recommendations next week on the 18th during his State of the State address, where he will kind of lay out what he expects from the House and Senate and put his budget forward. That's where we will see all of the breakdowns of funding for ports and how he has it divvied out. And then from there, the House Budget Committee will take it, go through the process, and then send it over to the Senate for that. Beyond budget, I won't go through all the big priorities, but specific that you guys will probably care about, crime is a very big priority for not only the governor, but for both the new Speaker of the House, Dean Plocher, who's from St. Louis County, and from the new President Pro Tem in the Senate, Senator Caleb Rowden. So I'm sure if you guys have not seen, you will see in the newspaper quite a few bills have been filed to take local control of the St. Louis Police Department back under state control. There will be a substantial amount of pushback from the St. Louis City legislators on that. There will be a number of other crime bills that will be introduced. A lot of them are targeted at the city of St. Louis, but I think they are going to try and broaden it to the whole state. But you will see a lot of stuff in the news about that. If you ever have any questions about it, do not hesitate to reach out, because it's a lot of backroom discussions on how some of that stuff will actually get done. Beyond crime stuff, we have 3 bills, and Susan can correct me where I'm wrong here, because these conversations started before I was brought on, but creating the Waterway and Port Trust Fund. I think you all know that when funding from the state gets appropriated to ports, sometimes we run into some timing issues where money has to get reappropriated. Sometimes we run out of time before the money can be spent and the project can get underway. But I believe that the establishment of this fund will help that out quite a bit, and maybe relieve some of the need to go back to the legislature to reappropriate funds. There's 3 bills that are introduced, 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate. It's that kind of, I believe, is a coordinated effort from all the ports. So that will be excited. I've met with all 3 of the sponsors, asked them how I can help. And once bills start getting referred, I will keep you all posted on that as well. beyond that, there's really, I'm trying to say this in a nice way, but last year, I think you all heard from me that there was not too much productivity in Jefferson City because of a lot of infighting and some personal disagreements between some people. The leadership in both the House and Senate have been very adamant that that is not how it's going to be this year, that there will be some very cordial debate and compromise that will be made on a lot of issues. So we will see if that happens. I'm always optimistic, but you never really know. But with that, I won't bore you with all the other priorities that they have up here unless you care. But in gun issues, obviously, will be a very big one too. That was one on my list. There are quite a few bills specific to the city of St. Louis to prohibit minors from carrying, from open carry, which our open carry laws in the state are very weird. They do not allow local entities to pass laws that contradict the state. There are a number of people that are trying to maybe take different piecemeal approaches, maybe just address the city of St. Louis and Kansas City. So I think as things start moving and when we see how well everyone is working together, that will be an issue that I think will be very upfront as well. But with that, if you guys have any questions.
I do. I have a question, actually a request. With regard to when you're talking about the open carry for minors, is there any way that besides watching the news that you can get that information to the port and then maybe they can send it to myself? And anything related to crime, I know you said there's a lot of activity bills that are being presented. Is there any way that I can maybe bypass the press and maybe get something directly?
Yes, I can add. So I usually don't bog down my reports that I send to Susan with a ton of the crime stuff, but it would be very easy for me just to add another section just on the crime bills and how they're moving and what's going on with that, if that's helpful. Susan,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Susan, I don't know if they get my report. A lot of it is like a gossip column sometimes. So I apologize about that. But if that is something that I send you that you can distribute, that would be very easy.
Yeah, I can send you that, Tanya.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Because that's a very big issue to me, considering, well, I live in the city and crime is an issue. And I have a colleague that works with a neighborhood security association, and I've talked to him about that issue with regard to minors being able to open carry, and it is a problem.
It is, and I know Susan has asked me before, just on different public safety line items in the budget, if there's ever, because sometimes there are, just for cameras or different security type things at the state level, I have been keeping an eye out for the port specifically on those as well.
Okay, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Barget?
First of all, how do you pronounce your name again, Miss? How do you pronounce your last name?
It is Barget. It's like Barget. When people say the fancy version of Target, they say Target. Okay. It's very, very similar.
And your first name is Jackie, correct?
Yes. Jackie. Just had to. It sounds very French. A lot of people think I'm a French boy, Jacques.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for the report and look forward to getting the future updates as well. Anything else in open agenda?
No, I don't have anything.
Very good. Anything from the commissioners in open agenda?
I'll just figure out how to work this Zoom better. So my apologies for being late.
No
That's
problem.
Right.
All right. Our next meeting will be held February 9, 2023. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Alderman Cone.
And I second it, Alderman Mason. I'm sorry, not Alderman, Commissioner Mason.
Very good.